Jurassic. Today we will go on an exciting and informative journey, covering an amazing Triassic period, which lasted about 50 million years. This is the era of the revival of life after the largest extinction in the history of our planet, when about 95% of all types disappeared. What was the land of that time? The climate is warm and humid. The continents are combined into a single supercontinent, Pangaea. Huge horsetails and ferns grow everywhere, as well as the first gymnosperms. This is a time of great biological experiments and amazing creatures. Let's start with Listarodonts. Imagine a strong beast the size of a large dog, with a barrel-shaped body and short legs, crowned with a funny face with a beak. Listarodonts were half-born animals and spent a lot of time in their underground burrows, which allowed them to experience severe conditions and avoid danger from predators. Thanks to the powerful front limbs, they effectively dug up shelters and mined the roots they ate. These strong creatures were so numerous that almost half of all the ground vertebrates were Listarodonts. The next creature we get acquainted with is Cynognathus. Imagine a creature similar to a large wolf or dog, but with a completely different anatomy. The Cynognathus was about 5 feet in length and had a powerful, muscular body designed for quick running and lightning attacks. One of the main features of Cynognathus was his strong jaws, equipped with an impressive set of sharp teeth, perfectly suitable for hunting for a variety of prey. From small reptiles and amphibians to larger animals. Due to their endurance and speed, Cynognathus were formidable predators and occupied the upper positions in the food chains of that time. But what does Cynognathus do especially interesting for scientists? This is his place in evolutionary history. The Cynognathus belonged to the group of Pterodons, or the rash reptiles, from which the first real mammals subsequently occurred. Some features of the structure of Cynognathus already resembled signs of mammals. Its limbs were located almost right under the body and not on the sides, which allowed him to move more efficiently and quickly. Scientists also believe that Cynognathus could have a primitive wool that protected them from the temperature changes of the Triassic period. In addition, it is believed that Cynognathus could show more complex behavior compared to other reptiles of that time. They could well take care of their offspring and, perhaps, even hunted in small groups, which was rare for that era. Thus, Cynognathus is not just a prehistoric beast, but an important step on the way to the hiring exchange mammal. This unusual predator is a living proof of how nature is slowly but steadily experimenting, creating new forms of life and paving the way for evolutionary discoveries. Now let's move on to the archosaurs. This is the most important group of animals of the Triassic period. Archosaurs are reptiles from which dinosaurs, crocodiles, and pterosaurs subsequently occurred. One of the first archosaurs is an Eoraptor, a tiny pioneer of a dinosaurus era who lived about 231 million years ago. Imagine a small, light animal slightly more than 3 feet long, agile and dexterous, moving on 2 strong legs. The Eoraptor was an omnivorous hunter. He could catch small insects and lizards, as well as eat plants. It is considered one of the first real dinosaurs. Phytosaurs dominated in the reservoirs of the Triassic. These amazing reptiles, living about 230 million years ago, looked like modern crocodiles, but in fact were not their direct relatives. Phytosaurs were impressively large. Some species reached 30 feet in length. They had powerful jaws with long, sharp teeth, perfectly suitable for taking prey. Their eyes and nostrils were high on their heads, allowing Phytosaurs to almost completely dive underwater, remaining invisible to the victim. This made them perfect masters of ambush. The diet of Phytosaurs was diverse, from fish to small reptiles and even young dinosaurs, which inadvertently approached the water. With the help of their lightning attack, Phytosaurs easily caught the victim, quickly pulling it underwater. However, despite the external resemblance to crocodiles, Phytosaurs were only distant relatives of modern reptiles. They represented a separate branch of archosaurs, which completely died out by the end of the Triassic period, giving way to real crocodiles and dinosaurs. Pterosaurs reigned in the heaven of the Triassic period, the first flying reptiles. One of the early representatives is Eudimorphodon, one of the first flying creatures of the Triassic period, which lived about 210 million years ago. Imagine a small reptile with a wave of wings a little more than 3 feet, rapidly soaring over ancient ponds and forests. Udomorphodon was one of the first representatives of pterosaurs, a unique group of flying reptiles that mastered airspace long before the birds. One of the most interesting features of this creature was his toothy beak, equipped with many sharp teeth of various shapes and sizes, thanks to which he easily caught small fish and insects right on the fly. These pterosaurs had wings formed from thin leather stretched between the elongated fingers of the front limbs and the body. This allowed them incredibly quickly to maneuver to and deftly evade larger predators. Eudomorphodons lived in coastal areas, spending most of the time in flight and landing only for relaxation and possibly laying eggs. It was Eudimorphodon and his relatives that were the first to discover airspace for vertebrates, laying the road to the giant pterosaurs of the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Now let's pay attention to the Sea of Trias. The water spaces of that time were populated by ichthyosaurs, similar to dolphins, but are reptiles. Mixasaur, the ancient inhabitant of the oceans, who lived about 240 million years ago. Mixaurians were early representatives of ichthyosaurs. This is a unique group of sea reptiles, which in their appearance resembled modern dolphins. These swift swimmers reached about 7 feet in length and had streamlined body, which allowed them to easily maneuver and develop high speeds underwater. The peculiarity of the microsuits is large eyes that help them hunt in deep waters, even with a lack of light. Their jaws were filled with sharp, conical teeth, perfectly suitable for capturing fish and squid, forming the basis of their nutrition. But one of the most interesting details was the fact that the Mixasaurs were vigorous. They did not lay eggs on land, but gave birth to living cubs right in the water. This unique feature allowed them to completely break away from the coastline and conquer the open ocean. Mixosaurs became one of the first successful sea predators, opening the way for larger and famous ichthyosaurs, which will later dominate the seas of the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Also, sea and coastal ecosystems were a home for notosaurs, semi-water reptiles with long necks, which could swim freely and go to land. They hunted fish and mollusks, resting on the shores, warming under the sun's rays. But the Triassic period was not only reptiles. Before you is an extremely important creature of the Triassic period, Morganucodon, one of the first real mammals living about 205 million years ago. Imagine a tiny animal, the size of no more than a mouse or shrew, clever and inconspicuous, leading a secretive lifestyle under cover of night. Morganucodon had a small, elongated body, probably covered with thin wool that protected it from temperature differences. These creatures had sharp teeth that allowed them to easily eat insects and small invertebrates. Thanks to their small size and a careful lifestyle, Morganucodons successfully avoided meetings with large reptiles. The owners of the Triassic Period. The fact that Morganucodon was already very close in structure to modern mammals is interesting. He had a developed lower ileus, which consisted of one bone, a distinctive feature of mammals, which allows you to better chew food. Moreover, probably, Morganucodons could already take care of their offspring, which provided them with an advantage in the struggle for survival. This is a small creature resembling modern shoes, leading a secretive lifestyle, avoiding large predators. It is amazing how the Triassic period laid the foundation for future ecosystems, giving the world the first forms of animals that will dominate millions of years. It was then that the era of dinosaurs began. The foundations for the appearance of birds and modern mammals were formed. Imagine an animal that looks like a turtle, up to 10 feet long, with a massive body covered with a strong carapace that protected it from predators. This is a plaster. Placodonts were real masters of mollusk mining and crustaceans. Their powerful jaws, with flat, durable teeth, easily shredded shells of even the most solid mollusks, allowing them to get tasty and nutritious meat. Thanks to their shell and severe physique, the Placodonts confidently felt in coastal waters, protected from most predators of their time. An interesting feature of the Placicontates is their swimming method. They were not too fast, so they often moved slowly along the bottom of the sea, collecting food and remaining almost invisible. This lifestyle made them a unique part of the Triassic marine ecosystem, emphasizing the amazing variety of forms that life has accepted during this period. Placodonts, although they died out by the end of the Triassic, forever left a mark in the history of evolution, demonstrating amazing adaptations of nature and its ability to create unique creatures adapted to life in various conditions. And here is another amazing creature of the Triassic, Notosaurus. These unusual reptiles lived about 210 million years ago and were real marine wanderers of the ancient world. Imagine an animal with a long body, an outstretched neck, and webbed paws, similar simultaneously to a seal and a lizard. The length of the Notosaurs was up to 13 feet. Their flexible body and powerful limbs allowed them to swim perfectly and deftly maneuver underwater in search of fish and mollusks, which formed the basis of their diet. Notosaurs led a semi-water lifestyle. Although they felt perfectly at sea, hunting and avoiding danger in the water, preferred to rest and multiply on land. It was on the shores of the ancient seas that they warmed under the rays of the sun, probably gathering in small groups like modern sea lions. One of the features of the Notosaurs was their long, sharp teeth, perfectly suitable for fishing. The structure of their body was so successful that it was the Notosaurs who read. They are subject to the ancestors of pliosaurs and plesiosaurs, which in turn were the legendary marine predators of the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Imagine a reptile that looked so strange that many paleontologists at first could not even believe in its existence. This is a Tanystrophe. Tanystrophe lived about 242 million years ago, and its main difference was an incredibly long neck. This is about half of the total body length that could reach 20 feet. Outwardly, he resembled a giant snake on thin but strong paws. Scientists argued for a long time for which Tanystropheus needed such an amazing neck. Today, most researchers agree that Tanystrophe led a half-water lifestyle hunting fish. He, most likely, stood motionless on the shore or in shallow water and quickly grabbed prey from the water with his unusually long neck. In addition, a long neck allowed Tanystropheus to quietly draw up to prey, remaining outside her field of view. However, despite its unique adaptation, it was not so simple to move to Tanystropheus. On land, his movements were slow and clumsy. Tanystropheus is one of the most unusual examples of the evolutionary experiment of nature, demonstrating how much the life forms of the Triassic period could vary. An amazing creature about which we continue to learn new details, thanks to the finds of scientists around the world. And this is the formidable Herrerasaurus, one of the first real predatory dinosaurs in the history of the Earth. Herrerasaurus was an impressive animal, reaching up to 13 feet in length and weighed about 200 kilograms. Imagine a creature with a muscular body, powerful hind limbs, and large, sharp teeth, perfectly suitable for capturing and retaining production. This early dinosaur was an extremely clever and quick predator that could easily catch up and attack the animals of his time, such as small reptiles, early dinosaurs, and even amphibians. Herrerasaurus possessed strong front paws with sharp claws that helped him to keep and immobilize the victim. The finds of the remains of Herrerasaurus in Argentina allow scientists to assume that he occupied the upper levels of the Triassic food chain. This was one of the first steps of nature on the way to the era of dominance of large predatory dinosaurs, such as Allosaurus and Tyrannosaurus, that will appear later. We can say that Herrerasaurus is a key link in evolution, one of the first successful examples of how dinosaurs began to win the world, paving the road to the most famous predators in the history of our planet. Let's talk about the Mixasaur. This is one of the most successful and widespread animals of the Triassic period. Mixasaurs were amazing creatures, the size of a sheep or pig, from the mass, the stocky body, and short, strong legs. However, their most unusual feature: this is a unique beak-shaped mouth, equipped with sharp, cutting edges, ideally adapted for grinding hard vegetation and roots. These herbivores were extremely numerous and widespread throughout the supercontinent of Pangaea. Their success is associated with their ability to survive on very meager and rough plant foods, which other animals simply could not absorb. This made Mixasaurs the most important creatures of the Triassic ecosystems, a kind of gardeners of their era. Surprisingly, the Mixasaurs made up a significant part of all the ground animals of the Triassic, being the main prey for many predators of that time. Their large number and accessibility have become an important factor in the development of the first large carnivorous dinosaurs and other archosaurs. By the end of the Triassic, the Mixasaurs completely disappeared, giving way to new, more specialized animals. Now get acquainted with the proportion. He was one of the first large ground predators who dominated the ground about 250 million years ago, immediately after the Great Perm extinction. Imagine a reptile of about 10 feet long, reminiscent of modern crocodiles, but much more ancient and primitive. Proterozoic had a long, slender body, powerful paws, and an elongated head with impressive jaws full of sharp teeth. These early predators were active hunters, attacking small reptiles, amphibians, and fish. Despite the external resemblance to crocodiles, the propaganda was not an aquatic animal. He hunted mainly on land, actively pursuing his prey and using sharp attacks to grab it with powerful jaws. Proterozoic. This is a striking example of how life was quickly restored after global disasters. These reptiles played an important role in the ecosystems of the early Triassic, becoming one of the first successful large ground predators of the New World. Although the propaganda disappeared in the first half of the Triassic period, they became an important evolutionary step opening the way for more specialized and perfect predators, such as phytosaurs and early dinosaurs, which will later take dominant positions in the animal world of the planet. And finally, we will talk about a little-known but extremely important creature of the Triassic period. This is a scales, one of the earliest mammals that lived about 200 million years ago at the very end of the Trias. Stracodon was very tiny, the size of a mouse or a shrew, weighing only a few dozen grams. He led a night lifestyle, hiding from the dominant dinosaurs and reptiles that ruled the planet in the afternoon. Under the cover of darkness, Stracodon went hunting, eating insects, larvae, and other small invertebrates. Interestingly, the structure of the skull and teeth of the Stracodon already much resembled modern mammals. He had clearly expressed incisors, fangs, and molars. This is an important sign that separates mammals from their ancestors. And his lower jaw consisted of one bone, as with you. Unlike more primitive animals, scientists suggest that Stracodon already had wool that protects from temperature changes and possibly even rudiments of warm-blooded. This is the ability to maintain constant body temperature. All this made him incredibly hardy and adapted to life in the world of giants. Watch the video, put your finger up, and leave the comments. And also click in the bell so as not to miss new and interesting videos from the Real Unreal channel.